everybody. I'm Tracy Tucker, and welcome to the Who is in My Genes podcast, where we share adventures in exploring family trees, including tips for researching your own family tree, stories about discoveries, DNA testing and matches, and lots about adoptee searches and advocacy, because we believe everyone has a right to know who is in their genes. Before we get to great-grandparents 5 and 6, I have a quick update on 23andMe. Yes, another one. On June 13th, 23 announced that it had entered into an agreement with TTAM Research Institute for the sale of nearly all the company's assets for $305 million. TTAM is a nonprofit led by Anne Wojcicki, and if that name sounds familiar to you, she is the original 23andMe co-founder and former CEO. A few weeks ago, we thought Regeneron was going to take over the company, but TTAM has outbid them. The bankruptcy judge still has to approve the sale, but some seem to think that this may resolve some of the privacy concerns that arose during the possibility of Regeneron taking over, so we'll see. Anne Wojcicki states that her intention is to continue with the same mission of the company. I still have not deleted anything from the site and still have no intention to, but I'm still keeping a close eye on it. More soon, I'm sure. If you want more details about this, just Google 23andMe or Anne Wojcicki, which is Wojcicki, and go to news for the stories. Now, on to today's episode. Welcome back to the podcast, Alex.
Thank you for having me back.
On our last two episodes, I gave you some details on your 4 great-grandparents from your father's side. Today, we are going to learn about your first 2 great-grandparents on my side, my father's parents. They are Sean Spasoff, Spasoff, and Christine Bojanoff, Bojinoff. And I want to specify that we're discussing my biological parents, not my adopted parents. I'll cover them in a different episode. Some of what we're going to cover today may sound familiar if you've listened to my Where in the World is Macedonia episode, but we're going to cover a little bit different ground here. So, Sean Spasoff, who went by Sam, your great-grandfather, my biological father's father, was born on March 12th, 1894 in Kratovo, Macedonia, to Nick Spasoff and Vinka Stoilkova. I have his specific birth date and parents' names because I requested a copy of his Social Security application through the Freedom of Information Act, which is called a FOIA request, FOIA, for Freedom of Information Act. It costs $27 or $37 if you need certification, and I'll put a link to the U.S. Social Security Administration guide on doing this in the show notes. In 1907, about age 13, if you can believe it, Sam left his parents and sisters Marsa and Yania in Macedonia and came to the U.S. As far as I know, he came by himself. I don't know the whole story there. Ristina Bojanoff, your great-grandmother, was born on November 8th, 1903 in Macedonia to Ristes Bojanoff and Menka Veleff, Veleff. I have this information also from her Social Security file. If these names sound very Eastern Bloc Russian to you, surnames ending in OFF, think Smirnoff vodka, likely used to be ended in OV. This follows the patronymic naming system and means son of. Macedonia, along with Russia, Bulgaria, Serbia, Belarus, Ukraine, and several others, are Slavic countries. And I think names ending in OFF or OV generally are from areas where Slavic languages are spoken. Slavic languages are Eastern European and Russian languages and include Russian, Ukrainian, Belarusian, Polish, Czech, Slavic, Slovenian, Bosnian, Croatian, Serbian, Bulgarian, and Macedonian. They're all related to each other, but they're also related somewhat to the Romance and the Germanic languages. So, Ristana, who went by Christine or Christina, emigrated to Johnstown, Pennsylvania, with her parents and two siblings in 1914. I first found her in the 1920 census at age 16, where she is living on Mengelborg Street in Johnstown. She's with her parents, Ristas and Minka. There are two other children in the household as well. All except the two youngest are listed as having been born in Bulgaria, with their parents also born in Bulgaria. Ristas and Minka's spoken language is listed as Serbian, and Christina was working at a cigar factory. We're looking at this page of the census. There are 50 people on the page. This particular census asked where they were born and what their mother tongue or native language is, and also the same for their mother and father. Only 24 people on the page, so less than half, were born in the United States. Only 7 of all 50 have at least one parent born in the United States. So this was obviously an immigrant community. Our family is the only one naming Bulgaria, but other native countries include Hungary, Austria, Syria, Poland, and Russia, with native languages named as Slavic, Polish, Syrian, Magyar, and Hebrew. So what do you think of that?
It's just amazing that all these countries had people emigrating to the US, that it didn't seem to be specific to a certain region or specific dialect or culture. It was literally everybody.
And can you imagine have a block party there?
It wouldn't be much of a party. I don't think anybody could understand each other.
The number of different cultures and languages being spoken, it would just be like this cacophony of.
It would be chaos.
So I also want to mention something here about why I say your great grandparents were from Macedonia while these records say Bulgaria. We have a couple of maps here of Eastern Europe in 1921, and this map is on our Instagram, by the way, and a map of today. In 1921, there is no Macedonia. Today, North Macedonia is a landlocked country with Greece to the south, Albania to the west, Bulgaria to the east, and Serbia and Kosovo to the north. On the episode Where in the World is Macedonia that I mentioned, I talk about this a lot more. And if you want more details, you can listen to it. But the short of it is that Macedonia, while one of the longest surviving country names in Europe, the borders have changed many times. I won't repeat all of the details here, but in the late 1800s, early 1900s, it was still part of the Ottoman Empire, if you remember that from history class. Greece, Bulgaria, and Serbia were all staking claims to the Macedonian territory, and in 1912 and 1913, the Balkan War was fought, followed by World War I, and parts of it were given to all three of those countries. Serbia then became part of Yugoslavia. The country that is now legally called North Macedonia is the part that went to Serbia/Yugoslavia. So, Scene, again, who went by Sam, and Christina were married on February 13th, 1921, in Johnstown. I don't have an original record of this, but I have the date from a newspaper article we'll look at later, and we have a picture of them here. Do you see any family resemblance? And can you believe that that picture is from over 100 years ago?
I'm amazed the picture is from over a century ago. I'm trying to determine. I don't know if I see any resemblance yet, but I'm sure as we go along and get more context, it'll come to the forefront.
It's not the best picture, especially of Sam. It's a little bit faded, but I just love how dapper they look.
They are dressed up for the occasion.
In the 1930 census, Sam and Christina are living with her parents and brother on Plum Street in Johnstown. Sam and Christina now have 5 children: Nick, Helen, George, Stephen, and Mary. Sam was working at a steel mill and was still listed as an alien, meaning not a U.S. citizen. All four adults in the household are listed as unable to speak English. Now, I kind of find that hard to believe because some of them have been there almost 20 years, but it could be that they just said that so that they weren't asked to speak or understand English. I don't know. Also, looking at this page of the census, again, there are 50 people on the page. So on this one, 34 were born in the United States. 7 have at least one parent born in the United States. Our family makes up 10 of these 50, with 6 of the kids being born in Pennsylvania. 2 other families on the page list Serbia, like our family. Others listed are Czechoslovakia, Italy, and Germany, with native languages named as Serbian, Slavic, and Italian. By 1940, Sam and Christina had 3 more children: Dorothy, Pauline, and John, for a total of 8, ranging now in age from 4 to 18. Christina is still listed as an alien, but Sam is listed as having his first citizenship papers. He was working as a laborer and worked at both Bethlehem Steel and Hiram Swank's brickyard while he lived in Johnstown. Sam is 46 and Christina is about 36, and they are still on Plum Street. They both now list their birthplace as Yugoslavia. The home is listed as owned with a value of $3,500. And it states that Sam worked 42 hours the past week as a wage or salary worker and worked 52 weeks the previous year for $4,650 in income. Christina did not work, and none of the children are listed as working either. In 1942, Sam registered for the World War II draft at age 48. He listed his place of birth as Kratovo, Yugoslavia. We know now that it's Kratovo, Macedonia. And we have an image here of his registration card, and it has his height as about 5 feet 6 inches, his weight as 190 pounds, with gray hair, a light complexion. I thought it had, and blue eyes. Eldest son, Nick, registered also in February 1942 and enlisted in the U.S. Navy in June 1942 and served in the war. He was discharged in January 1946. He then worked for many years at B.F. Goodrich, if you've ever heard of them. And we have a picture here of Nick from his high school yearbook. Son George registered at 18 in June 1942 and then enlisted in the U.S. Navy in January 1943. He was named in an Akron Beacon Journal newspaper article titled "Akronites Serve" and was named as a stewardsman serving as a sailor aboard the USS Dixie in the Far East. George served in the Navy for a total of about 20 years, then worked for the U.S. Postal Service. He eventually moved to Fort Pierce, Florida, where he was a member of the American Legion. He died there in 1993 and was buried at sea. Son Steve also enlisted in September 1943 and served through 1946. He died in 2010, and his cremated remains are in the Ohio Western Reserve National Cemetery. So in this line of your ancestry alone, you have 3 World War II veterans. How do you feel about that?
I had no clue that I had that many family members who had served. I knew of my grandfather who did serve, but it's interesting to see how common it was during that time for anyone that was willing and able to enlist in the armed services.
Well, you know what's kind of astonishing to me is they all 3 made it home.
They all did, and it doesn't, at least from this slide, seem like they had any injuries of any kind or any major ones.
Pretty amazing. About 1946, the family moved to Akron, Ohio. and Sam got a job with Goodyear Aerospace. In 1950, they were living in a house on Palmetto Avenue, a house that would be theirs until their youngest son, John, who lived there nearly his whole life, died in 2018, so at least 68 years. And we have a picture of the house, or a recent picture of the house here. So that was their house that that whole family lived in and grew up in, and some died in Akron, Ohio.
I cannot fathom being at that house that long and all the things that probably happened in that house over decades and decades and decades.
Right? If the walls could speak.
If only.
In 1950, Sam had been granted his U.S. citizenship and was working as a punch press operator at a lumber company. The birthplace for Sam and Christina on the 1950 census is listed again as Yugoslavia. It states they both have citizenship, but I haven't found their records yet. 5 of the 8 children were still living at home, ranging in age from 13 to 28. In 1955, tragedy struck the family. Daughter Pauline, age 22, was killed in a car crash. A newspaper story states that she was riding in the back of a car being driven by an 18-year-old who ran a stop sign and was broadsided by another car. A car was parked too close to the stop sign, which prevented him from seeing it, and that owner was ticketed. Pauline had gotten off work at 9 p.m. and normally took the bus home, but the driver and 2 teenage companions offered at the bus stop to drive her home, and they were taking a ride around town before dropping her off. Pauline was thrown from the car and was pronounced dead on reaching the hospital. She was buried at Glendale Cemetery. The driver of the car was charged with second-degree manslaughter. I couldn't find anything else on the case, but he did get married in 1959 at age 22 in Akron, so about 4 years later. So if he was convicted, he either served no or a short sentence. And in 1961, he was listed in a newspaper article as having reached the 1-gallon mark in donations to the Red Cross Bloodmobile program. So I'm wondering how that impacted his life.
Do we know why she took the ride from them? Was there any relation between them? Or did they know each other?
Well, they must have. I don't think she would have gotten in the car with just a stranger. Maybe he was a friend of one of her brothers.
That's the question I'm wondering.
I don't know. There wasn't anything in the article about how they knew each other. In Akron, Sam was a member of the Croatian Fraternal Union Society, the oldest and largest Croatian organization in North America, a fraternal benefit society of the Croatian diaspora, helping preserve Croatian culture and offering a variety of supportive programs to its members and community. And the Croatian Fraternal Union still exists today. Sam and Christina were also members of the Macedonian Political Organization, which is now the Macedonian Patriotic Organization. And its official stance is the realization of Macedonia for the Macedonians, but it is a controversial organization, so we'll leave that there. They were also members of the Macedono-Bulgarian Orthodox Church of St. Elia the Prophet, an Eastern Orthodox parish officially incorporated in 1946 in Akron by Macedonian and Bulgarian immigrants, but that had been operating unofficially since about 1939. The building was known as the Macedonian Home, and it was owned and operated by the Macedonian Patriotic Organization. What a coincidence. And we have pictures here of what the building looked like originally and what it looks like now after a renovation in the 1980s. So they were still very involved in and connected to their roots throughout their life here in Pennsylvania and Ohio. What do you think of that?
I think when you come from your home country to a native land, just like anybody else, you tend to stick to what you know, who you know, and the culture that you have. And it's interesting to see that back then at that time period, how deep those intentions were to have a community of people that were either from the same area or spoke the same language or had the same culture, and how far that went.
I think maybe being so far from home, it's helps remind them of home also.
You want to feel that comfort
Right,
of knowing what you're doing and who you're with.
right. And you're helping your fellow countrymen who are also far from home.
Exactly.
In 1960, Sam, at age 66, retired from Goodyear Aerospace after 15 years. In February 1971, an Akron Beacon Journal newspaper article featured photos of Sam and Christina in an article titled Spasoffs Have a Golden Day, which covered them celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. This is the newspaper article I referred to earlier that includes their wedding date, and we have a copy of that article here with pictures of them in it. Sam died 2 years later in 1973 at the age of 79. Christina died 6 years later in 1979 at the age of 75, and both Sam and Christina were buried in Glendale Cemetery with their daughter Pauline in Akron. Son Nick and daughter Helen are now also buried there. So, what do you think of this family story?
This family story seems like the classic emigration to America.
But no farmers.
Oh, how do they eat then? No, but it seems like a very classic emigration story to America, forming a community, serving. It's very much what the stereotypical American dream would sound like of leaving, whether you're dealing with turmoil or looking for opportunity, coming to America, serving in the world wars, and then
Owning a
exploring,
home.
owning a home, having a family, and being part of a community thereafter in wherever you ended up.
And does it make you feel any more Eastern European or Croatian or Macedonian?
It does, in the fact that it gives context to what that actually means versus just saying, oh, your lineage goes to this country or this country. To see people and the stories connected to it gives a little more context and helps me relate more to what it was actually like.
Absolutely. They sailed over the huge ocean in a ship when they were very young, maybe even by themselves, to come here and try and make something of their lives.
And it turns out they did.
And it turns out they did. Thank you for listening to the Who Is in My Genes podcast with me, Tracy Tucker. If you enjoyed it, please give us a great review to help others find the show, and follow us to get notified of new episodes. Visit us online at whoisinmygenes.com for all the ways we can help you find out who is in your genes, and follow us on Instagram for the images we mention in the show. Links are in the show notes. Join us next week for a new episode of Adventures in Exploring Family Trees.